Buckle in, sports fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show. The program will be starting in just a couple of minutes, so grab your popcorn and get ready to enjoy the show. While you're waiting, make sure you're following us on social media at WHBC Stream and staying tuned to WHBCStream.com. We're so glad to have you today on the program, and we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line on Twitter or call the show 352-639-0036. And thanks again for tuning in.
HBC. Well, it is a good evening to you, and how you be? William Haynes here, you there. Here on this Tuesday night at 9:57 here on the William Haynes Show, of course, as always, live from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. Some good things to talk about. We have a Rays 6-1 win over the Washington Nationals. The Rays secure win number 31 on the year. They are now 31-17. I believe their magic number to get to the postseason is 4, and their magic number to win the American League East is at 9. So a little bit of work still left to be done. We are coming to a close, obviously, on the season. There's a game against Washington tomorrow to finish that 2-game set, and then it's going to be 5 in Baltimore in Camden Yards, 3 against the Mets in Citi Field, and then coming back home to play the Phillies for 3 games. So obviously, we have to take it one day at a time, but just a reminder that we are coming down the stretch. And while we're doing reminders, anyone that we have listening, we have a line open if you'd like to call in. The number to call is 877-566-1020. We're going to go ahead and take a call right now. And we have Seth calling from Los Angeles. Seth, how's it going?
Hey, in there all right. Other than the fires out here in California, everything's pretty good.
Yeah, I bet that's some tough stuff, but good for the Rays tonight, don't you think?
Oh yeah, this is the kind of statement win over a bad team that we just haven't been seeing enough of lately. That big win over Boston was all right, but then they had to sour it by splitting the series, and that kind of just doesn't sit super well, especially because we're now 3-4 against sub-500 teams that we've been playing the last few weeks. So I think we gotta. I think this is the kind of game where you can look back on this and say okay, we've stepped up. This is good. Let's build on this and do some more good stuff in the future.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I've been saying it on the show for the last couple of weeks. It's nice to get these wins now and potentially secure a division title, something they haven't done in a decade. But I say all the time, it's not as much about winning in September and having success. It's how you set yourself up for October. But in that, Austin Meadows, Brandon Lau, those guys are heating back up. I think Ryan Yarbrough had a nice step back in the right direction tonight. Morton is coming back from that injury. So, yeah, I think after a little bit of a slump that the Rays have been having the past week and a half or so, I think, like you said, they're turning it around and returning back to the form when they were so great in August.
Yeah, I think we definitely got to see Meadows and Lau turn it around. If the team's going to be like really successful in a deep postseason run, they really got to turn it around. They got to right the ship, because as much as I'd like to rely on folks like Randy, Nate Lowe, love to rely on all those guys, and I think you probably can to some extent. I would much rather see the stars hitting the way they're supposed to. We really got to get back to that.
Oh yeah, and yeah, like you say, it's easy to kind of beat up on some of these teams. You know, the Washington Nationals, Anibal Sanchez, the Rays struggled against last time, but after a start tonight, his ERA is over 7, so by no means a challenging pitcher. Obviously, they're going to be facing a lot better guys in October, and a big part of getting to those kind of big aces is those big name guys at the top of the order doing some damage. So the Rays are going to need guys like Meadows and Lau hitting at their best. One thing I would present, obviously this Rays team is a better team with Ji-Man Choi on it, but I really do like with the way Nate Lowe has heated up and maybe a platoon with Bross over at first base. I think in the short term, we might see some success over there at that position.
I think that definitely the key right now is going to be Lowe and Brasso replacing Yandy and Choi as best they can. I mean, I think that it's very good to get those guys reps, because as much as I hate to say it, I don't think Choi is going to be a Ray forever. I'd much like him to be, but it hurts me to even think that. But he needs, I don't know. It depends really on where this season goes and where the next one. I don't know how much control they have over him, but I don't think it's indefinite. So I think we got to hope that he'll stay, but I don't know if it's necessarily for sure that he will in the next few years. So having Lowe and Brasso waiting in the wings and getting consistent reps and getting to perform in those reps, I think is very good for the team overall.
Yeah, setting itself up for the season. I think last year when Nate Lowe was playing towards the end of last season, he looked to be at that time maybe the replacement at first base from Ji-Man Choi. And while you were talking, I had a chance to look it up. Ji-Man Choi's contract, he made $850,000 this year. The next 3 years, his age 30, 31, and 32 seasons, he's going to have arbitration years, and then he's an unrestricted free agent in 2024. So he'll certainly, I mean, the Rays will probably be able to keep him for about $1 million or so a year, but at his age 30 season, he's going to be a disposable asset.
This year, he's probably not going to command as much in ARB as he probably would have because of a rough season and also an injury-shortened season. So the hope would be that they'll be able to get him for relatively cheap this year and then maybe get him one more season. But I mean, in all honesty, if he has like a really good season at some point in those 3, his arbitration value is going to skyrocket so much that they're just going to look at internal options and be like, yeah, disposable asset, he's gone. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I would think his ARB will be pretty low this year because he just had like kind of a rough start to the season, and then he immediately got hurt as soon as he started heating up. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But definitely I think that it's good to have Brasso and Lowe in that position that they're in, because they're very young and they're going to be solid players that we can put up in the event of injury or in the event of losing a player like that. And one's a righty, one's a lefty. So, good general lineup.
And they're both versatile. Nate Lowe now has been playing a little bit at third base, and we know with Brasso they can play across the infield. So I think maybe that's a detractor, of course, for Choi. He's not very versatile. I mean, he's played the corner outfields in certain stops, but never for the Rays. So, yeah, I mean, they'll be able to keep him if they want to. I think maybe a sort of non-baseball kind of outlook that they might need to have. Tickets. Obviously, Ji-Man Choi will bring a couple more fans into the building, so all those kind of things to consider. Obviously, me, you, everyone else that's a Rays fan listening to this would love to see Ji-Man Choi stay, but you never know.
I'd love to see him stay in a Rays uniform for the rest of his career. I think that he's the kind of guy that is, a team player that is beloved by the fans, was never beloved by the fans in his previous stints with other teams, and this is, certainly not beloved enough. Let's just put it that way. For a guy as lovable as him, he's not beloved enough. Now, the Angels didn't deserve him. The Yankees certainly didn't deserve him. And now he's on a team that really respects his talent and loves him as a player and loves him from a fan perspective. So I'd love to see him stay here indefinitely. The reality of baseball is, though, if he plays really well the next few seasons, his ARB numbers are going to go up so high that with, Stu Sternberg's pathetic management of his team, it's gonna be problematic. So especially because when you've got those low paying options, you got Lowe and Brasso who you can pay nothing. You can pay him the league minimum for 3 years. It's like, why even keep a guy who could be commanding double that, even if it was just double the league minimum? It was just $1 million. And like Sternberg, his penny pinching is going to result in him, thinking, oh, double the league minimum, that's too much. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's something certainly to keep an eye on. One thing I'd like to maybe get your thoughts on as well, I talked about this a little bit on yesterday's show. The Rays have been a lot more aggressive on the base path. It seems more even as of late, and I think last year's team was a little bit better in terms of power with Pham and Avi and Darno, but I think an improvement in this year's iteration of the Rays is they're a lot better on the base path, and they're stealing a lot of bases, and I think maybe that could prove some value in October when you're trying to scratch out some runs. They had 5 stolen bases tonight from 5 different guys, so I don't know if maybe this is just something they're trying out, but call them the Tampa Bay Bandits, man. They're stealing those bags like nobody's business.
I think base stealing is a critical aspect of the game that the Rays have been leaving by the wayside for the last couple of years prior to this, mostly because they had some guys with damn time. Like there are some guys. Poor G-Man, as much as I love him, he lost that game against the Orioles for us early in the season. That was his fault. I mean, that was a toot blend that completely screwed us. You gotta consider those things. And so Kevin Cash, I think, has now realized that there is an advantage to the run game if you do it effectively. If you don't get caught stealing all the time, there's definitely an advantage to it.
Yeah, I think some of it was situation. Anibal Sanchez and that combination with Kurt Suzuki, that's a very easy pair to run on. If they match up against the Yankees, Gary Sanchez, or maybe if they put Eric Kratz back there. Just talking matchups, the Blue Jays, both those catchers are tough. They probably wouldn't run on them. So it's all about matchups, I think, and Cash is all about putting guys in positions to succeed. And I think maybe the reason they just haven't been doing it as much in years past is they just really haven't had the pieces. Margot has been tremendous, swiping bases. He's up at the top of the majors in that category. Obviously, we know what Kevin Kiermaier can do on the base path. But, I mean, you look even Meadows, Adames, guys, with pretty decent speed that can maybe swipe second, and all of a sudden you got a runner in scoring position.
At this point, it's just about avoiding the toot blends. If we can have those guys who steal bases all the time, but don't do stupid stuff on the base paths while trying to steal bases, then I'm happy. Margot has been stellar. I mean, I actually can't stay on this call super long, but I want to say one kind of thing before I go is that Margot has just been so good in comparison to Renfroe. I mean, I expected Renfroe to be the better of those two trades the entire time. I was like, oh, this is a guy the Rays can fix. This is a guy whose power can be adjusted and who can be fixable for us. And instead, he's actually regressed from the last season. And Margot has turned into, let's just call him what the Discord calls him, Margot. He is incredible. I think he actually leads the Rays in average right now. I mean, he leads the Rays in average or is close. I think he's either right there or second place when it comes to most games played and average in those games. He's definitely up there. He's got a 281. I don't know if that don't quote me. I definitely know Brasso has a higher average, but he's played fewer games, so I don't know if that counts. So he's doing really well in average, and he's leading not only the Rays, but I think you said the league in steals. Is that right?
He's at the top of the majors. I think top 3 the last time I checked, but yeah, obviously up there.
Yeah, no. So I mean, Margot has turned out infinitely better, and unfortunately the Pham Cronenworth trade is starting to look worse and worse. I mean, as much as I love our guys in the front office, as much as I love Neander, as much as I love all those guys up front, I think they kind of got a little screwed in that trade. I think that the rookie of the year is kind of a big piece to lose, and getting back a guy who literally cannot hit to save his life. They say there's 3 true outcomes, but with Renfroe there's 2. It's a home run or a strikeout or some kind of lazy out. There's no walk. He doesn't walk like Joey Gallo does, and I think it's a tremendous downside. But Margot has been utterly fantastic, and I'm so glad to see him playing well on this team. Just worries me that his ARB numbers are going to get driven into the freaking stratosphere.
Yeah, I agree with all your points there, and I think we also agree Renfroe will probably be moved out this offseason with the log jam that they have in the outfield right now. But good to see Margot playing. Thank you so much for the call tonight, Seth. It was a good one.
Absolutely, I appreciate it, and I will hopefully be calling again the next time we have a big win.
Absolutely, look forward to having you.
Have a good one.
You too. All right, well, there he goes, Seth from Los Angeles. Again, Seth, if you're listening to this, thank you so much for calling in. As always, a very good call in. And to anyone else listening, if you would like to call in, you can do so at 877-566-1020. We'll take a break in about 9 minutes, but in the meantime, we'll talk a little bit more about tonight's Rays win. Also wanted to let you know, just because it is a pretty crucial game, Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals in the NHL, it is the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Islanders tied at 1 with 13 minutes left to go in the third period. It's been a little bit back and forth. The Islanders scratched out a goal in the first period off of a power play, a little bit of a weird penalty taken by Kucherov, and then the Lightning respond, I believe, in the second period on a play by Victor Hedman, if I'm not mistaken, getting one in the net. So with the Lightning with a 3-1 lead, they can clinch their spot to go to the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, and they'll face the Dallas Stars, who wrapped up their series last night against the Vegas Golden Knights. So that's definitely going to be a tough matchup, but the Lightning have to beat the Islanders, who are in front of them, and they're in good position. So obviously, with it being such a crucial game, we'll probably interrupt whatever we have to say if there is a goal for the Lightning, and then obviously if they win, we'll be celebrating some of that for the Rays the Lightning if they can punch that ticket. Maybe have Aaron on, the big Lightning fan and NHL correspondent of the show. But enough of that. Again, we'll take a break in about 8 minutes. Number to call the show, 877-566-1020 at WHBC Stream is the Twitter. And calls are open to all things, not just Rays, not just Lightning. If you want to talk Bucks, obviously it was a disappointing loss in Week 1 against the Saints. They're going to be home against the Carolina Panthers this week, and we'll talk about that over the course of the weekend or anything else in sports. Also, Game 7, we have the Clippers and Denver Nuggets. Clippers up 45-36 in the second quarter. The Clippers were up 3-1 in that series, and Denver Nuggets making their case to go to the Western Conference Finals and play the Los Angeles Lakers. So we will keep our eyes on that. But most importantly, we have the Rays 6-1 over the Washington Nationals. Again, as I said, the Rays advanced to 31-17. We take a look at where the American League East standings lie. These are all subject to change with some of the games that are going on. I believe the Yankees already won over the Toronto Blue Jays. So right now it is the Rays 4 games up on the Blue Jays, and then it's the New York Yankees a half game back of the Blue Jays at 26-21. So the Yankees have won 5 straight. They're hot. And it was not against the Blue Jays for the Yankees, so I want to figure out just who that score was. Oh, okay, the game hasn't gone final yet. It's the Yankees 20-5 over the Blue Jays, so those teams will flip-flop, and we'll give you the other baseball scores when we take the break. It was Ryan Yarbrough getting the win. I wanted to kind of lead the show off with this, but we didn't quite get the chance. It felt like the Rays kind of put us in a cannon or a time machine and sent us right back to 2018. Ryan Yarbrough's rookie season, if you recall, went 18-5, but never started outright, always behind an opener. For whatever reason, they liked the matchup, I guess, to have Yarbrough behind an opener. He goes behind Curtis, who gets an inning and a third scoreless. Just a walk was the only base runner allowed, so pretty good on Curtis to open the game. And then it was Ryan Yarbrough following that with 5 2/3, 86 pitches. No, not quite as efficient as he would have liked. Only 52 of the 86 were for strikes, but he only gave up a run in just under 6 innings. So I think ultimately you like what you see. He missed a time through the rotation with a groin issue. As the quote goes around, nothing ever popped or snapped. He basically pulled himself out of a game against the Marlins in Miami a couple of weeks ago. And it was an issue that he's basically been having all season, and it kind of flared up at that specific time, so they give him the 10 days off, and he came back. Was a little bumpy in Nationals Park, so the next time around, of course, his second start off would be against the Nationals once again, this time at Tropicana Field. So they have him behind an opener. Ultimately, it works, as I said, and Well, I was going to say they're going to want him to be a starter, but now that I think with the playoffs coming up, as we look at the schedule, I mean, there would only be maybe 2 times through the rotation before season's end, depending on the way they want to set it up. But I think that they may just have Yarbrough ready to go behind an opener and give him some practice, because I think that's kind of the matchup that they would maybe want in October in the postseason. That's what they did last season in the American League Division Series. It was Game 4 at the Trop. Instead of having Yarbrough go outright, it was Diego Castillo opening with Yarbs with some strong innings behind him. We also have another caller that we're going to go to now. We have Sebastian calling from Canada. Sebastian, you're on the William Haynes Show. How's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for calling. What can you say?
I don't have much to say. I think you've covered a lot of the positives that we saw from the Rays today. One thing I did want to mention, and I kind of talked to you a little bit about this before, is I really love how aggressive we've been on the bases lately. And I really hope this is something that we kind of continue into October, because I feel like being aggressive on the bases is a good way to put some pressure on the pitchers, and a good way to get them to sort of make some pitches that maybe they wouldn't necessarily make, and use that to our advantage. So I really hope that's one thing that we can continue to do.
Yeah, I think our minds are in the same place there. It provides a lot of value. I think my mind goes back to those games in the ALDS last year where I think Verlander gave him 7 strong in one of those games, and then I think Garrett Cole had 8+ innings in both of his starts in that series, and they really just couldn't get any base runners. I think this iteration of the Rays this year, which have been really good at walking and getting a lot of men on base, if you combine that with some potential base stealing, it's easy to generate offense even against some really good pitchers, which you would think the Rays are going to face at some point during the playoffs.
That's right. One thing I wanted to get your thoughts on was that we've seen Margot sort of do these. I guess they call them a delayed steal, where they sort of, instead of going on the first move of the pitcher, they kind of wait a little bit and then they take off to try to catch him off guard. He tried it. I don't remember what games, but he did it 2 different games and he got caught both times. And I was just wondering what your thoughts were, on the delayed steal versus, I guess, like a classic steal.
Yeah, that's certainly a good question. Something I haven't really seen a lot of other teams do. I guess that's one of the things maybe just that the Rays are trying out. Obviously, they do a lot of different stuff. I could be wrong. Maybe some other teams do it. I guess maybe part of it is you kind of want to see what what takes place during that pitch. If it's a swing and miss, if it's on the ground, something like that. Like you said, as we saw Margot failing both times. I think it also maybe depends on what catcher it is. If it's a catcher that's good at blocking and stuff like that, maybe you just go on first movement. But if it's a guy maybe like a Gary Sanchez or something that can maybe fumble with it a little bit, that's where you do the delayed steal. I don't really necessarily have a great answer to that. I'll certainly look into that, maybe do some reading into it, because I would thank you. That is a great question. But I'm not sure they would stay with it, though, because as you said, it hasn't really worked out.
Yeah, it's just one of those interesting things. Like, I'd never heard of that before until this year. Somebody posted a video of somebody stealing, and the announcers called it like a bad start. But then somebody said, no, this is a classic like delayed steal situation. And I just thought it was a really interesting thing, because it's kind of counterintuitive. Like, you'd want to get the best jump, right? But I guess it's worked out before, and I was just kind of curious to see if maybe that was what Kevin Cash and the Rays were trying to do, or like they were trying to play around with it or what. But yeah. And then the other thing too, like you mentioned, Yarbrough looked really good. His curveballs were looking really, really good today as well. I noticed he was getting some really, really important pitches with that curveball as well. So it's good to see him kind of bounce back from that last start where he got kind of been and didn't last as long as we wanted. So it was nice to see him sort of, have his pitches working for him today.
Absolutely, I agree with you. The good point about the curveball and his off-speed stuff, that was the problem with his short outing in Nationals Park the last time through the rotation. It was that off-speed that I haven't really seen him do before. It just didn't have the type of movement that we see from Yarbrough, and it was just allowing the Nationals hitters to get some easy contact off of it. So I think whatever issue he was having, he certainly cleaned it up, looked a lot sharper, and was able to go almost 6 innings in 86 pitches, which is pretty good.
That's right, yeah. So, I didn't really have much else for today. I just kind of wanted to bring up a couple of those points that kind of popped in my mind today during the game and stuff. So, I don't know if you have any other points you want to talk about.
No, I think you pretty much covered it. A lot of good points. Yeah, I think with Yarbrough looking good, that was really one of the most important takeaways for tonight, setting themselves up maybe for him to have a good spot in the rotation. In the playoffs, we'll kind of have to wait and see. And, yeah, I'll look into that delayed steal and get back to you because I do think that is a really interesting thing. Certainly. Thank you for the call tonight, Sebastian. I appreciate it.
No problem. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks. All right, and that was Sebastian calling in from Canada. Sebastian, if you're still listening, I'd like to thank you for the call. It was a good one, and also it was from Seth. So we've already had 2 people call in, so that was nice, certainly to see. At 10:21, we're going to take a break. If you would like to call in and get in on some of this action, you're certainly welcome to do so. The number to call is 877-566-1020. At WHBC Stream is the Twitter. You can tweet us your thoughts on there as well. But we're going to give you some baseball scores, take a short break, and we'll be right back to talk some more Rays. HBC. Some scores in baseball that have already gone final. It was the Phillies 4-1 over the Mets. The Phillies now over 500, and the Mets reeling 6 games under. Obviously, the Rays 6-1 over the Nationals. Reds 4, Pirates 1. The Red Sox 2-0 over the Marlins. And some action currently going on in the bottom of the 9th. It is the Yankees up 20-6 over the Blue Jays. In the bottom of the 8th, Tigers 6, Royals nothing. Also in the 9th inning, the Braves 5-0 over the Orioles. In the 7th, it's the Brewers 13-3 over the Cardinals. In the 6th, White Sox 5, Twins 2. In the 7th, the Rangers and Astros tied at 1. Top of the 7th, also a tie game between the Indians and Cubs, a 3-3 game there. In the 6th, it's the Rockies 2-1 over the Athletics. In the 4th, Dodgers 2, Padres 1. And in the top of the 3rd, it is the Diamondbacks 4-0 over the Angels. Again, number to call during the break, 877-566-1020. We'll be right back.
Hey, sports fans. William's currently in the can, but he'll be right back. We're currently on a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us at 352-639-0036 or drop us a line on Twitter at WHBC Stream to tell us what's on your mind. We want to talk sports. We want to get unruly. We want you to tell us what you think so we can argue. Anyway, when all that's said and done, please stay tuned for William's world-famous Around the XFL podcast and other projects that he's currently got in the works. Please visit WHBCstream.com, and thanks again for listening in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 10:24, we are back on the William Haynes Show with you for about another 30 minutes or so, maybe depending on the outcome of this Lightning game. It's still tied 1 goal apiece with about 6.5 minutes left to go in the third period. So if it goes to overtime, we may not be on the air. I was hoping we would be when the Lightning clinched and we could maybe have some post-game celebration, but it may not work out that way. Obviously, we'll be on the air tomorrow. A programming update, the Rays, will be playing tomorrow at 1 in the afternoon. So instead of just doing a post game right after the final out, as we typically do with the Rays, we'll be on the air, call it 9 o'clock sharp Eastern time. So we'll have some Lightning to talk about, win or lose. If they win, probably do some Stanley Cup final preview stuff. If they win, I should say, and if they lose, we'll just talk about that game. But we've had some callers, and that's great. If you would like to call in, we have a line open for you. The number to do so, 877-566-1020 at WHBC Stream is the Twitter. But now time finally to break down this Rays win proper, 6-1 over the Nats. Again, as I said, Yarbrough getting the win, 5 2/3 of 1-run ball. Anibal Sanchez getting the loss, so the Rays finally get back against him after a weird kind of outing against him in Nationals Park about 5 days ago. And it was Nick Anderson getting the save. Obviously, 6-1 game, you wouldn't think a save situation, but it was Ryan Sheriff having a bit of trouble getting some guys out in the ninth. And unfortunately, Anderson did have to come in, but he only threw 7 pitches. So his availability tomorrow, right now, I'm not sure they would like to use him on a back-to-back, but I guess if they wanted to, they could do so. The Rays, the way they lined up defensively in the outfield from left to right, Austin Meadows was in left, Kiermaier in center after having 3 days off between the two games against the Red Sox and the off day yesterday. In right field, it was Manny Margot, and in the infield from left to right, Brasso at third, Adames at shortstop, Brandon Lau at second. At first base, it was Nate Lowe. Kevin Smith did the catching, which was a little bit surprising, and he caught starting off for John Curtis, who opened tonight's contest. I'll mention it later when we preview tomorrow's contest, but it was originally thought that Fleming would start. Instead, it will be Fairbanks opening, which is a little bit different, and Fleming will work behind Fairbanks as the opener. So something that Kevin Cash had talked about before today's game, that he wants to get back to doing that. Obviously something they did a lot in 2018 and some at times during 2019, something they kind of gone away from this year with what they thought would be a full starting rotation, but a couple of guys go down. Josh Fleming didn't necessarily have the best time out his last time, so it makes sense. It worked for Yarbrough today, so the hope would be that Fleming would have a nice outing behind Fairbanks tomorrow against the Nationals at 1:10. We'll preview that game right before we get off the air. And the way the lineup, the hitting order lined up, it was Meadows leading off, followed by Lau and Brasso. Setsugo cleaned up, which we haven't seen a lot of, followed by Margot and Lowe, and a bottom three of Adames, Kiermaier, and Smith. Right off the bat, some takeaways. Adames and Lau at the 1-2 hitters both go 1 for 5. No walks, 2 strikeouts for both of them. So they get some hits, and it looks like they're relatively heating up, but not great. Brasso goes 2 for 4. He's still in the mix. Margot goes 2 for 4. Nate Lowe 2 for 3 with another homer, so that was great to see as well. He's really coming to his own, I think, this year. Adames 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts, and then Kiermaier adds a couple of hits and a walk, including 2 runs batted in. So anywhere you look, and that's really when the lineup is functioning at its best, is when top to bottom you have guys that can hit. Obviously, we know the Rays are a team that's great at putting men on, whether via the walk or even some bloop hits. It seems like they have more base runners than anyone in the majors, seemingly. So when you have guys 1 through 9 that can be a threat at the plate to maybe knock some men in, that's good to see. The team with runners in scoring position goes 3 for 14. Not great. Adames 0 for 3. Lau 0 for 1. Lowe 0 for 1. Setsugo 0 for 2. And Kiermaier was 1 for 2. Kevin Smith 1 for 4. So that was kind of frustrating. And Margot was 1 for 1. So some guys hit well, some guys did not with runners in scoring position. They left a total of 9 men on base. And as I mentioned earlier, they had 5 stolen bases by 5 different players. Kiermaier getting his 7th, Meadows his 2nd, Margot his 12th. He's at the top of the majors in that category right now. Brasso getting his 1st, and Nate Lowe getting the first of his major league career. He's fortunate that Suzuki bobbled the catch out of his mitt on that play, or else he probably would have been thrown out, even though Suzuki's arm is not great, especially at his advanced age. But I put it out on Twitter, deposited to the guys on WDAE, calling the game, Dave Wilson and Andy Freed, that I said, revive the old Tampa Bay Bandits. They were the USFL team out of Tampa Bay all those years ago, and I just thought seemingly swiping all those bags. The return of the Bandits tonight was one of the storylines, and also I guess one of the other narratives, a blast to the past, as Ryan Yarbrough starts behind an opener for the first time in a regular season game since I believe 2018. I'm not exactly sure, and he gets the win. He was 18-5 as a rookie, doing that in 2018 behind the opener, so it's easy to get the win. Certainly, with when the opener can get some of those toughest hitters out. So that was kind of good to see. Of course, inning by inning breakdown we go. Curtis opens game one of this 2-game set, gets Eaton to line out, Turner to ground out, and Soto to strike out. So good to see Curtis and his 1.42 ERA dispose of the 1-2-3 hitters of the Nationals rather easily. Bottom of the first, Brasso gets to second base with 2 outs, and they can't bring him across. Meadows flies out, Brandon Lau strikes out to start, but then Brasso hits a single and steals a base. As we said a couple times on the show, that's really sometimes how you have to generate offense. If you can get on base via the walk or the bloop hit, and then you can swipe a bag, all of a sudden you have a runner in scoring position, and that can be a threat at any point in the game. We knew that that's something that the Rays were looking to take advantage of. Maybe not to this extreme, but against Anibal Sanchez, who throws upper 80s, lower 90s, and Kurt Suzuki, a catcher that's not great at throwing runners out. So that's a good combo as far as having some success swiping some bases. And again, 5 different guys stealing 1 bag apiece, so 5 total in the stolen base category. But then Yoshi, who batted cleanup, the lefty against the righty, I guess, he pops out to end things. He goes 0 for 3 tonight, does Tsutsugo, with a walk and scored a run on that walk. His average is at 193, so that might be a discussion for a different time about Tsutsugo. It's a little more below the surface, but I would say all in all, he's had a bit of a rough transition to the major leagues. He's shown some pop at times, hitting some nice home runs, but I think that hitting for average hasn't necessarily been there. But he has been good drawing the walks. Even with that low average, he got an on-base mark of 317, which isn't necessarily horrible. Top of the second, Curtis faces 5 batters in total, and then Yarbrough comes in. So Curtis starts the second and gets Cabrera to line out, then walks Suzuki. Ryan Yarbrough comes in again. Curtis finishes with an inning and a third of just a walk and a strikeout. 23 pitches. His ERA is down to 1.42. He's been good. He started some games. He's closed some games, recording a save. So kind of a do-it-all reliever. He's been good from the right side of the bullpen. Certainly also, before I forget, Oliver Drake was activated off of the injury list for the first time since I think late July, early August, as Ji-Man Choi goes on the injury list, which Kevin Cash said he'll be out for the rest of the regular season with a grade 1 hamstring strain that he hurt in Sunday's game against the Boston Red Sox, sliding into home plate. So something that Seth mentioned, the platoon going over there with the lefty Lowe, the righty Brasso. They can both play multiple positions on the infield, but they're going to be the top candidates to take over at first base, and it was Nate Lowe, I guess, as I mentioned on Twitter, before the game, starting off the post-Ji-Man Choi era at first base. So Yarbrough comes in, gets Thames to strike out. Keyboom hits a single, but then gets Garcia to strike out Ugly, the 20-year-old batter. Had some really bad waves and misses, and that was part of what Sebastian had mentioned. The curveball especially. Yarbrough also has a nice cutter that he works. He's got some different off-speed stuff, some stuff that's hard to identify, but has got some good movement either way, and just made him look bad there, and I think that was a really good sight to see after his off-speed was not challenging Nationals hitters really at all. I think he gave up like 8 hits or something like that. So he takes care of the walk that he inherited from Curtis and finishes the second inning after Curtis opened it for him. Bottom of the second, Nate Lowe has officially found himself this year. Kevin Smith knocks in a run as well. Margot flies out to start, and then it was Nate Lowe, 416 feet to right. He has really been on a tear lately this weekend, really getting things started. His average is all the way up to 250, which doesn't sound great, but I think he was 0 for his first, 15 or something like that this season, and has really come on strong since. So he starts scoring off to make it 1-0 Rays in the second. Adames on a 3-2 count strikes out. He took all 6 pitches in the at-bat. I guess I'll just mention this now. I think the last time we were on the air, maybe last Thursday, that was the game where Adames tried out the clear glasses. He mentioned that he was having trouble seeing the ball with the lights in Tropicana Field. And there's some drastic home road splits with Willie Adames. Kind of they call him Road Willie because he hits over 300 on the road and an average hitter, I think, about 220, 230 at home. So there's a lot of I guess, points to be made about that. The Rays, I guess, had mentioned that the lights last year were adjusted for Tommy Pham, who had some eye issues, some sort of disease that caused a degenerative eye issue, and I guess they had the lights adjusted a certain way so he could see the baseball better, but obviously it's not better for Willie Adames. Kevin Kiermaier, a guy as well who mentioned he's had some struggle seeing the baseball under the lights there in the Trop. So, I mean, something that I guess they're going to play with. A 3-game set potentially to lead off the playoffs. We'll talk about the playoff format that has officially been announced and agreed on a little bit later. So I just wanted to mention that now. He goes 0 for 4, does Willie with 2 strikeouts. His average down to 274. This year as well has been much better on the road than he has at home. So he took all 6 pitches in that at-bat, so maybe, that's credit to not seeing the baseball too incredibly well. Kevin Kiermaier, after having 3 days off with a bit of a knee issue, not really an injury, but just, he's 29, 30 years old this year, feeling maybe a little banged up. Hits a single and then gets to second on a balk from Anibal Sanchez. And then Kevin Smith hit an RBI single, so that they taking advantage of the balk. That was his only hit for Kevin Smith with runners in scoring position. After that, he would go 0 for 3 in that situation. And then Meadows, when the lineup returned to the top, struck out to end things. I just wanted to interrupt to say that the third period regulation has ended in Edmonton. The Lightning and Islanders will be heading to overtime, tied at 1. Now, I didn't see what penalty it was, but the Lightning had a 4-minute power play. They used up about a minute of it, so they'll be able to rest up in the locker room, and they'll be able to come out and have 3 minutes left on the power play, so maybe they'll be able to put it away relatively early. So we'll keep our eyes on that. We may be on the air when that game comes back in overtime, probably. Top of the third we go. Yarbrough gets a 1-2-3 inning, strikes out Robles, gets Eaton to fly out, and Turner to pop out. So good to see him have some success there against the top of the order. Bottom third, Anibal Sanchez gets a 1-2-3 inning. Brandon Lau strikes out, Brasso lines out, Yoshi pops out. Top of the fourth, Suzuki gets hit by a pitch that's hit. Yarbrough would get Soto, Asdrubal Cabrera, and Thames out in that inning. So he was looking pretty good. I'd retired most of the batters that he had seen at that point. Bottom of the fourth, I wrote Tampa Bay Bandits. Kevin Smith strains 2 runners in scoring position. Margot grounds out to start things. Then it was Nate Lowe hitting a single and stealing a base. What do you know? I know his figure is a little bit slimmer compared to last season, but he's still not necessarily a speedy guy at first and third baseman type. But they saw a matchup they liked with Sanchez, the pitcher, and Kurt Suzuki, the catcher. They run. Suzuki bobbles it a little bit, so Nate Lowe gets the first stolen base of his major league career to get him in scoring position. Adames reaches on an error that was charged to the first baseman. It was a ball that might have gone foul down the third base line, but the third baseman for the Nationals, Keyboom, picks it up and throws to first, and Asdrubal Cabrera couldn't handle it over there at first. So then it's first and second. I believe Nate Lowe was able to, or no, he stayed at second. So up comes Kevin Kiermaier. He hits a fielder's choice. So Adames is out at second. Nate Lowe moves to third. It's Kiermaier at first with 2 outs, so runners at the corners. And then Kiermaier steals a base. So second and third with 2 out. And then Kevin Smith grounds out to leave it as a 2-0 game. Top of the fifth we go. Nationals play small ball. Yarbrough puts out the fire. I think the fifth inning was really one of the most I would say probably the most crucial inning of the game. Keyboom and Garcia start off the inning with back-to-back singles. Victor Robles bunts him over, as they've done in those two games in Nationals Park, bunting the runners over when they can get guys on. So second and third with one out. Eaton grounds out. Turner pops out. So they go back to the top of the order, the 1-2 hitters. And to the Rays' credit, they both go 0 for 4, does Adam Eaton and Trey Turner. So to get them both out with runners at second and third, that was certainly a good sight to see. And Yarbrough was able to kind of clean up his own mess there. Bottom of the fifth, the Rays blow it open. Meadows hits a leadoff single and steals a base. Brandon Lau lines out. Then it was Mike Brasso getting hit by a pitch. They had mentioned on the broadcast that could be potentially retaliation for Yarbrough hitting Suzuki in the fourth. The Rays had also hit quite a few batters in Nationals Park in that series about a week ago. I'm sure you are, as well as I am, are kind of tired of talking about retaliation. I don't get the whole thing with you can't how dare you hit batters, how dare you throw up and in, whatever. So retaliation or not, I don't know. There was some chippiness against these two teams 2 years ago in 2018 in the Trop. If you recall, Sergio Romo gets a save in a really weird game, and he's talking trash, and the bench is clear. So Bryce Harper was involved in that altercation, a benches clearing incident. So I don't know, maybe a little bit of history between these two teams, but that was, I guess, a little footnote in the contest. So Brasso gets on with the hit by pitch. Yoshi Satsugo walks to load the bases the one time he gets on tonight, and then Manny Margot, an RBI single to make it 3-0, and then that knocked Anibal Sanchez out of the game. In comes Bramer, and Nate Loke works a walk, which counts as an RBI. I see RBI walk on my paper, and I'm doing a double take. It does count as a run batted in, even though he didn't do anything with the bat, but he walks, so that's good to see him. And 2 for 3 with a walk, so he reached base 3 times in 4 at-bats. That's nice to see, and also brings in a run. Adames strikes out on a 3-2 count. There was a pitch in that sequence that was just foul from being a grand slam. Willie Adames has hit the only grand slam for the Rays this season. If you recall, earlier this month in Nationals Park, that blew open the scoring, where I believe the Rays put up 15 runs or so on the Marlins. So he almost had the grand salami, and then he ends up striking out of that bat, which you hate to see. So you think maybe he's a little bit frustrated right now. And then Kevin Kiermaier, a 2 RBI single to make it 6-0. And with the runner in scoring position, what do you know? It's Kevin Smith to strike out. Top of the 6th, the Nationals ground in a run. Soto doubles to lead it off. Cabrera moves him over. Suzuki grounds him in to make it 6-1. And Thames strikes out to end it. That was still with Yarbrough on the mound, so he does give up an earned run. Bottom of the 6th, 2 hits. That's it. It was Brandon Lau singling, pitching change, Brasso a single, and Yoshi Satsugo, who again did not have a great night, grounded into a double play. Top of the 7th, a weird inning. Yarbrough faces 3 and gets 3 outs. So Keyboom lines out, and then Garcia gets on. They ruled it a single, and I think it was Dave Wills or Andy Freed. They kind of were mocking the official scorer's decision. I mean, I'm not saying that to bash him. It really should have been an error charged to the third baseman Lowe. It was a play, obviously, with Lowe kind of standing somewhere between first and second, and it was a backhanded play with Yarbrough running to cover the first base bag, and it was just a bad toss from Lowe, and Yarbrough wasn't able to corral it. Again, it really should have been an error on Lowe. They call it a base hit, whatever. That doesn't necessarily matter. I just wanted to mention that. Robles pops out. It was a pop-out double play, so I guess maybe Garcia didn't know how many outs there were. He was running on a pop-out. Looked like it might have maybe gotten down, but I think it was to Adames, who made a nice catch and whipped it back to first base before Garcia was able to retreat back to get the double play. So a strange inning all in all. But Yarbrough was able to work through it relatively quickly. Bottom of the 7th, another stolen base. Margot singles and gets that stolen base. Nate Lowe strikes out. Adames in a good at-bat lines out, and it was some good contact, but just I think it was the left fielder Soto running in to make the catch. Kevin Kiermaier is intentionally walked in a 3-0 count, and then Kevin Smith grounds out again with a runner in scoring position. He goes 1 for 4 in that category tonight. Top of the 8th, Aaron Loop gets a 1-2-3 inning. He comes on and gets Eaton, Turner, and Soto. So once again, a Rays pitcher impressing with against the top of the order. It was just a rough game for really the Nationals lineup, obviously only scratching out a run. So that closed Yarbrough's day. He gets the win, his first win since August of last year. I know if you're a Rays fan, you will remember that game. It was in what do they call it? T-Mobile Park now in Seattle. Yarbrough goes 8 2/3. Again, the Rays haven't had a complete game since I think 2016. So Yarbrough was an out away, but it was in a 1-0 game. And they pull him and go to the bullpen, who gets the final out. And there was some maybe talks that the clubhouse was upset. There was some drama. Obviously, it didn't matter as they ended up finishing strong and making the playoffs. But that was kind of a weird footnote in that season. And it was just also really weird to hear them say that was Yarbrough's first win in over a calendar year. So he finally gets it. And how kind of fitting is that? A guy that took advantage of working behind the opener again, an 18-5 record his rookie season doing that, and of course he gets his first win in forever behind an opener tonight. He goes 5 2/3, gives up an earned run on 5 hits, doesn't walk anybody, which is very good, strikes out 5. 86 pitches, only 52 were for strikes. I think that's where the concern is drawn. Faced 22 batters and only threw a first pitch strike to 10 of them, so it was not great as far as getting ahead of hitters. And did not throw as many strikes as he'd like. He's a guy that really part of his draw is how good he is at getting outs early in the count. He's not like Snell that's trying to go on the mound and strike out everybody. He just wants to get outs and do them quickly. But when you don't throw strikes, hard to do that. But as Sebastian mentioned, the curveball was working. The cutter, some of his off-speed stuff was really sharp, much sharper than his last time against the Nationals. So all in all, a very good start. He does get the win, so that's good. And then in the 8th inning, it was Aaron Loop getting a scoreless inning, no walks, no strikeouts. No hits, none of that. His ERA is down under 3. Yarbrough's ERA is just under 4 at 3.97. So all the bullpen and really the pitching staff looking very good, which is, well, as I keep saying, very good to hear as they head into October. Top of the 9th, the 1-2-3 hitters go 1-2-3. We've heard that a lot lately. Meadows flies out, Loud grounds out, and Brasso flies out. It's in a 6-1 game, so be it. But an interesting bottom of the 9th. Ryan Sheriff comes on. He's yet to give up an earned run this year. Triple zeros in the ERA category. Gets Cabrera to ground out. But then gets into a little bit of trouble. Suzuki hits a single. Knoll pinch hits and hits a single of his own to put a couple of men on. And then Keyboom walks a guy who's hitting 203. You got to challenge him in that spot in a 6-1 game. But instead, he walks to load the bases, and all of a sudden, it's a save situation. And they bring in Nick Anderson, who was off on 1 day's rest. The whole team was off on Monday. He comes in and strikes out and this is just also the lefty Garcia. So instead of having the lefty Sheriff face him, they feel better about the righty Anderson facing him. And he strikes out Garcia. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, as Dave Wills would say in 3 pitches. As we see so often from Anderson, that automatic strikeout, it seems like he always brings to the table. And Hernandez, who's 0 for 3 this year, and I believe one of the oldest players to make a major league debut. He's in his 30s this year, so an interesting story there. A footnote on the game. He strikes out to end things. So Nick Anderson picks up his 5th save. I guess they didn't want to have to use him. They obviously want to be careful with how much they use him because they want him ready for the playoffs. It's not as much that they are going to need him right now. The magic numbers for the Rays, I think it's at 4 to make the playoffs, and to win the American League East is at 9. I would imagine on both clinching nights they would like to have Nick Anderson on the mound, as he's the kind of their best reliever. If you think back to last year on the last weekend of the season, it really came back down to the last minute there. It was Emilio Pagan who was kind of that de facto closer that closed out that game in Toronto to send the Rays to the playoffs. So I'd imagine probably on playoff clinching night and on potentially an American League East clinching night, they'd like to have Nick Anderson maybe close out both of those games. But outside of that, I'm not sure how much they're going to want to use him. Maybe another footnote on that. I keep reading about it, and it disappoints me every time I see it. The quote, no alcohol celebrations in the clubhouse. That's kind of been the saying is different different venues and such, the social distancing is easy until people start drinking, and the post-game celebration after the race clinched the playoffs and after they won the wild card, popping the champagne, pouring the beers over each other. I think really one of the joys of baseball, and it is a bit of a shame that they're not going to be able to have that. And I think that I'm not here to talk about all that kind of stuff, but you already know they're going to be doing some sort of that in some sort of room in the hotel. So not that it really makes a difference, but it won't be televised, it won't be documented, we won't be able to see it. But oh well, but clinching night will still be a big moment for the Rays. Hopefully, we're hoping for 2 clinching nights, playoffs and division title, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. I think the Rays can clinch as early as Thursday. So takeaways really for me, not a whole lot. Meadows and Lau at the top of the order both get a hit. Brasso with a couple of hits. His average is at 328 is Brasso in limited action. I didn't like Tsutsugo cleaning up. He doesn't get a hit. Margot has been playing very well as of late. He's kind of come off and on at times, but I think really he's had a strong kind of finish to the season. 2 for 4 with a stolen base. That is his 12th. Again, I think he's top 3 in the majors in that category. Another rough night for Adames, 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts, and really... we'll also Kiermaier 2 for 3. I wanted to mention 2 runs batted in and a walk. Nate Lowe with another home run tonight. He has been red hot lately, and with Ji-Man Choi out, it looks like Lowe is going to be playing a lot of first base between him and Brasso, a true righty-lefty platoon. So that was good to see him have a good game. And then Curtis with a good open, and Yarbrough a really good outing. Sheriff a bit concerning, and then with Nick Anderson slamming the door shut, 7 pitches, 6 for strikes. So he was really on his game tonight, as he is every single time. That's really all we have to say about that. When we come back, we have some things to talk about. We have the playoff for baseball. The format, I guess, was confirmed, agreed upon between the MLB and the MLBPA. And then outside of that, some other news that we'll kind of talk about from all the different sports. And we'll be taking your calls right until we go off the air at 877-566-1020. We're going to give you some different sports updates, update you on the baseball, and then on some of the other sports that are going on right now. So sports update here, a short break, and we will be right back. HBC. Some games that have gone final since we last spoke. The Yankees 20-6 over the Blue Jays. They retake second place in the American League East. The Brewers final 18-3 over the Cardinals. In the top of the 8th, the White Sox, who have the best record in the American League, 6-2 over the Twins. In the 8th, the Astros 3-1 over the Rangers. Also in the 8th, the Cubs 4-3 over the Indians. In the 7th, the Rockies 3-1 over the Athletics. In the top of the 6th, Dodgers 3, Padres 1. And the 4th, Diamondbacks 8-1 over the Angels. Game 7 of the West semifinals in the NBA is the Denver Nuggets up 76-67 over the Clippers. Just about 3 minutes left to go in the third, so about 15 minutes left to play in there. And just underway in overtime, the Lightning on a power play. 1-1. The Lightning up 3-1 with a goal here in overtime. They will punch their ticket to the Stanley Cup final. We will be right back.
Hey, sports fans! William's currently in the can, but he'll be right back. We're currently on a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us at 352-639-0036 or drop us a line on Twitter at WHBCStream to tell us what's on your mind. We want to talk sports. We want to get unruly. We want you to tell us what you think so we can argue. Anyway, when all that's said and done, please stay tuned for William's world-famous Around the XFL podcast and other projects that he's currently got in the works. Please visit WHBCStream.com, and thanks again for listening in.
HBC. And at 10:54, we are back on the William Haynes Show. Again, number to call if you want to be on the show, 877-566-1020. The Lightning with a minute left on the power play again. We'll let you know if the Lightning do score and punch a ticket to the Stanley Cup Final. A couple things left that I wanted to talk about on the show as we've now passed the hour-long threshold. Just wanted to give you some general sports stories that stood out to me. The first of which, the wide receiver Michael Thomas for the Saints has a high ankle injury. He's considered week to week. I saw some report. He's going to miss maybe 3 to 4 weeks. He'll miss their Monday Night Football game, the home opener for the Las Vegas Raiders. So he'll be out for that. He had 3 catches for 17 yards against the Bucks, but obviously is one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. Also, we have the Jets running back Le'Veon Bell. He's going on injured reserve with a hamstring, a pulled hamstring, I guess. Is the report. He injured it in the game against the Bills, and he came back in the game. Head coach Adam Gase had expressed regret for that decision, and it looked like he injured it worse than it would have been if he had just stayed out. So for a Jets team that, let's be honest, wasn't going to win more than 5 or 6 games this year anyway, is missing one of their best offensive players, Le'Veon Bell. Wide receiver for the Bears, Allen Robinson, he is unhappy but has not asked for a trade per his agent. The reason for saying that, it's always a story on social media when a guy removes all of his team stuff. He took down all the Bears pictures on his Instagram. He took down the that he's a player for the Bears in his Twitter. So what I would imagine happened is he was probably unhappy, and I expressed that to his agent, and maybe his agent kind of talked him off that cliff of doing anything too rash. He's making $13 million this year. He's 27 years old. Really good. A quote from him, again, for me, it's never my focus. I've said that before. I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on this season. All that other stuff, I let it play out however it plays out, but that's not of any of my concern right now. So that's kind of a weird story. The Bears coming back in week 1. I couldn't imagine that any wide receiver on the Bears would be particularly pleased with the quarterback position. Mitch Trubisky, who was the week 1 starter over Nick Foles, looked absolutely awful for the first 3 quarters and then brings him back in Detroit against the Lions. So maybe currying some favor, but Allen Robinson unhappy according to his agent. And then in college football, I have not seen the announcement being made, but there was a hot mic incident. We've seen that already this year in the MLB, but this time in college football. Some sort of press conference with the University of Nebraska, and I think it was their president on a hot mic again before some sort of press conference saying that they were going to announce Big Ten football and the return of Nebraska football tonight. We have not seen that again. A refresher on that: the Big Ten was the first Power 5 conference to announce that they weren't playing fall sports in 2020, and I think. At least my opinion was they expected that the other conferences were going to, follow suit. The Big Ten kind of the mind that they kind of run things. The SEC said, no, we are going to do football in the fall no matter what anyone else does. So the ACC followed suit, and so did the Big 12. The Pac-12, and I think just out of necessity with the legislation that had been passed restricting stuff with COVID on the West Coast, the Pac-12 was not able to play in the fall. There's a look. The USC Trojans asked the California government to, quote, please let us play. I'm not sure that's going to work out. That may be potentially for the spring, but the quote from Nebraska on the hot mic is, it looks like the Big Ten will be returning to play at some point this fall. That's going to be a conversation to have at some other point, and probably on my other show. I'll go ahead and plug that for the first time, FSU Sports Daily, wherever you get your podcast. Kind of a niche audience, I suppose, but I'm a student there right now. It's a daily podcast, about 15 or 20 minutes a day, where we cover everything and anything Florida State athletics. I'm going to have to do some reading on the women's soccer team, as I was going to preview their season on tomorrow's show that I'll record tonight. So an inside look potentially at that. I doubt we have anyone that listens to both of those shows, but just in case we do, there you go. No score or no goals yet in the Lightning game. Again, obviously, potential clinching night for the Lightning, so that's kind of important. Also another story, Steve Cohen reaches agreement to purchase majority ownership of the New York Mets. He's going to be the richest owner in Major League Baseball. I don't know how many million. I want to say he's got like $20 billion or something like that. His net worth makes him, I think, the richest owner of all time, at least in baseball. He's purchased for $5 billion. He's purchasing 95% stake in the New York Mets, and the Wilpon family, who previously controlled majority ownership, will own the other 5%. So Steve Cohen really making a big move here. I followed the Mets a little bit as kind of a National League team that I like to watch every now and then. So I know Mets fans were clamoring for that. Jeff Wilpons were not so affectionately known as the coupons because of how stingy they were as far as free agency. And I think the hope is that Steve Cohen is just going to buy the Mets into a winner with the free agent signings and things like that. So I'm not sure it'll work out that way. But Steve Cohen, he's a hedge fund manager, and so not really. But he grew up loving the Mets, so an interesting story, and he'll have to be approved by 23 of the 30 Major League Baseball owners. So, Stu Sternberg will have to vote on that. I'm not so sure he's going to love that because of how that'll affect free agency and more potential buyers in that market. But you never know. And as I refresh Mark Tompkins' Twitter page, doesn't look like we have any other updates from him. I mentioned earlier in the show, Fairbanks will open for the race tomorrow afternoon. Josh Fleming will work behind him in a bulk role, so it looks like Kevin Cash and company was impressed how Yarbrough performed behind the opener today, so they want to keep that momentum moving. I know they'd even talked about that before the game, so interesting to see how that will work. We'll preview that game shortly before we get off the air. And then really the other thing that I wanted to mention, I could probably spend a bit of time talking about this, is Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association has agreed on a playoff format. We already knew kind of how the seeding and everything was going to work. There's going to be 8 teams in each league, the top 2 place teams in all 3 of the divisions, and then 2 wild cards, so probably 2 third place teams after that. And we knew that's how it was going to be, and we knew that it was going to kind of be like the NBA or the NHL, where it's 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6. You get the idea from there. So we had an idea of how that would work, but we didn't know where they would be played. Now we know that the best of 3 series, there's going to be 4 of them in each league, will be played at the higher seats home ballpark. So it looks like the Tampa Bay Rays, who will be able to hopefully clinch one of those top 4 top seeds. They have the second best record in the American League. I think they're a half game or a game behind the Chicago White Sox, who are up on the Twins in the late stages in that one. So hopefully it'll be a 3-game set. In the Trop for the Rays, it looks like right now it's going to be the New York Yankees, but that could flip-flop between the Toronto Blue Jays. The second American League seed will be playing the second wild card, or it looks like, I think I might be getting a little bit confused on that, but it looks like it'll either be the Yankees or the Blue Jays, potentially the Indians in there. That's the way the standings are working right now. But after that, they are going into a bubble format in the American League. There's going to be the 2 American League division series. So the 4 best of 3 obviously will break down into 4 teams. And in 2 series, one of the best of 5 ALDS series will be played in San Diego, and the other will be played in Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. And then after that, the American League Championship Series will be played in San Diego. So the Rays, if they advance in that best of 3, are going to be going out west, and it makes sense to have them in National League ballparks to prevent any potential home field advantage, even with no fans. And for the National League, one of the best of 5 National League Division Series will be played in Arlington, Texas, in the Rangers ballpark, and the other will be played in Minute Maid Park in Houston. And then the National League Championship Series, a best of 7, both of those are best of 7, as in years past, will be played in the Rangers ballpark, and as will the World Series. So the brand new ballpark that opened this year makes sense, that they would want to put it there. It will be in Arlington, so we hope that the Rays will be able to make it that far. The drive to Arlington, it will be known as, I suppose. So A caveat to that, there is some concern with the wildfires out on the West Coast. There's some games in Seattle that have been postponed. So if those continue in San Diego or Los Angeles for the American League playoffs, the Major League Baseball, they have announced that the Arizona Diamondbacks are basically the backup plan. So still in that West Coast proximity, and it's basically an indoor park. I think they do have some open air, but they have the humidifiers, I guess, to make it not so dry in there. And that's a very deep ballpark, so that could also alter some things as well. I'll have to check on the dimensions of Dodger Stadium and Petco Park in San Diego, because that can also play in potentially to the Rays' hands. We know they built Tropicana Field as a pitcher's park for a reason. Run prevention is much cheaper than run production, so to speak. It's easier to get good pitchers than to buy home run hitters, so they do better in pitchers' parks. I know for a fact that Arizona, the backup plan, is one of those. I don't know so much about Dodger Stadium or the stadium in San Diego, but that's what we know will be happening. It will hopefully be the Rays for a 3-game set in Tropicana Field, and we'll find out the matchups a little bit later. And then if they win that, they'll be playing in the ALDS best of 5 as they did a season ago. In either San Diego or Los Angeles, and then if they make it to the American League Championship Series, a best of 7, it will be in San Diego, and of course the World Series, if they make it that far, a best of 7 in Arlington, Texas. So they agreed on that. It makes sense to do the bubble. That's what the NHL did. That's what the NBA did. Obviously, you don't want to have any type of COVID situation in the playoffs, because it's a lot harder to postpone games, obviously. It's hard to say, really. I don't know. It's going to be easier to, I guess, kind of keep an eye on some things, monitor it a little bit easier, because everyone's kind of in one spot. I do think it is a little bit of a shame, because part of the beauty of baseball is that every ballpark is different, and they all fit a team for a specific purpose. I know more frustrating maybe for Yankee Stadium in the short porch, but that's kind of an exaggeration of that. Every ballpark has their own personality, and it fits the team that plays there. So I think they'll be missing a little bit of that. It's good, at least the first round, the wild card series, as it'll be known as, will be in the home ballparks, and that's really all I have to say about that. It looks like the way the standings lie right now, as I refreshed, because it looks like the Yankees will be jumping over the Blue Jays, and they do. It is now the Rays with a 4-game lead in the American League East over the Yankees, and the Blue Jays a half-game back. It looks like the Orioles are going to be out of the playoffs, and then it's the Mariners, who are making a run for the second-place spot in the AL West. The Astros are 23-24, but the Mariners are a game and a half back of them at 22-26. They had a doubleheader, I think, postponed in Seattle today, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. And then it looks like there's going to be 3 playoff teams coming out of the AL Central. The White Sox with the best record in the American League at 31-16. The Twins, 2 games behind them. They'll make the playoffs at 30-19. And then probably getting a wild card. I mean, it's really close that a lot of stuff is going to be clinching here rather shortly. The Indians at 26-21. You look at, they have a 98.8% chance to make the playoffs. A lot of stuff has already decided, and really has been at some time. More up for grabs, really, I'd say, is the National League. You look in the National League East, the Braves at 29-20, they have a 3.5 game lead on the Marlins at 24-22. And in third place and in a wild card spot is the Phillies, who have come on nice as of late at 24-23. And the Mets, who are going to be playing hard in that 3-game set against the Rays in about a week's time at 21-27. They're 7.5 games back of first, but it looks like, they're probably 2 or 3 games out of the playoffs. In the Central, the Cubs 28-20. The Cardinals at second place, 4.5 games back at 21-22. So there are going to be some teams under 500 making the playoffs. The Reds, a half a game back at 24-26. So the Reds, a lot of people's National League pick maybe to make the World Series. They were out of it for a little bit, but they've climbed back in. Trevor Bauer and company. And then it's the Brewers, a half game back of them at 22-25. So the National League Central will be interesting to watch. Pretty good playoff odds for all of them. The Cubs at 99.9%, Cardinals 77.7%. But then the Reds at 46% and the Brewers at 39%. So that's a toss-up. And in the National League West, two teams with a 100% chance to make it, the Dodgers at 33 and 15, and surprisingly only 1.5 games back as the San Diego Padres at 32 and 17, potentially making a run at the playoffs. The Giants at 23 and 24. As I look at the other wild cards, it looks like the Phillies have the one at 24 and 23, and then it would be a toss-up. The Giants would have the edge over the Reds for the second wild card. So as of right now, the Giants would be a playoff team. And obviously that's all subject to change, but we are coming down the home stretch. It looks like also of note about the playoff scheduling, it looks like it's going to start in late September. I think, let's see, for the Rays, their schedule, they play their final game on the 27th, and I think the wild card best of three series starts on the 28th or the 29th. And also of note, there is going to be no off days during the series in the first three rounds, I believe. I have it right here. It's courtesy of, it's Ken Rosenthal on Twitter. No off days between games in first three playoff rounds is huge. And then he also offered, consider how the last three World Series champions shrunk their staffs. In 2019, Strasburg, Scherzer, and Corbin, the big three, combined for 58% of innings. In 2018, Eovaldi, Price, Porcello, and Sale, 59%. In 2017, in Houston, Verlander, Keuchel, Morton, McCullers, 68% of the innings. So in the playoffs, as he said, if you have a good rotation, that's a huge asset to have. I think most exaggerated was with the Washington Nationals, because it seemed like, I think they even, like Strasburg would start one day, and then 2 days later he would be in as a reliever, and then still be starting whatever on the 4 days rest. I don't know exactly how they did it, but they were really aggressive with those pitchers, and Strasburg has gone down. And then Scherzer has come back nicely, surprisingly, in his mid-30s, and then Corbin has come back as well. But they were aggressive, so with no off days in between the series, I think maybe I don't know exactly why they're doing it, to try and just finish up the season as soon as possible and get on with it. I don't know exactly, but no off days again between games in the first three playoff rounds. So I'd imagine maybe a day or two days off in between series, though. And also another note, just during the game for the Rays, in the first 28 games of the season, the Rays stole 10 bases, but in the last 20 games, they stole 25. So that's something we talked about over the course of the show, as the Rays have been much more aggressive on the base path. I don't know if they're trying to experiment with stuff they want to do in the playoffs. Obviously, they're putting a scouting report out that they do like to run. So I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. We're going to have to wait and see. And I guess I don't really have anything else to say. I'm trying to stall really as much as I can to see if we can be on the air, maybe to call the Lightning goal if they're going to take this series here tonight. But they are up 3-1, so they're all good even if they don't win. Tomorrow, some afternoon daytime baseball at 1:10 at the Trop against the Washington Nationals. It will be Austin Voth of the Nationals against Josh Fleming. Of Peter Fairbanks. Peter Fairbanks will open. Josh Flemings will get the bulk innings. Fairbanks a rough time out his last time as a reliever. Austin Voth, the young starter, as I said, 0-5 with an ERA of 8. So not great for him. We look at his last couple of outings. He has no appearances against the Rays. His last time out 5 days ago against the Atlanta Braves. No decision for him. Goes 4 1/3. 3 earned runs on 2 hits. Gives up a home run, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, and 83 pitches thrown. He's not thrown more than 88 in a game. So either way, he's not looked very good. He's given up a ton of home runs, 11 total home runs. It seems like he's given up at least one in every start. So you like the Rays' chances maybe to put some runs on the board. And for what it's worth, Peter Fairbanks, his record 4-3 with a 3 ERA, but it's going to be Josh Fleming's getting the bulk innings. His last time out for Fleming against the Boston Red Sox in a no decision for him in the game that the Rays lost against Boston. He goes 4 1/3, 3 earned runs on 6 hits, 2 home runs, which has been the case in each of his last 2 starts, 2 walks which he does not do a lot of, 5 strikeouts and 75 pitches, and that's first start 72, then 74, 73, then 75 for the pitch count in his 4 starts. So it looks like a hard pitch count for him, and maybe that'll allow the Rays to get deeper into the ball game. Having Fairbanks maybe go, an inning and get a couple of outs in the second. Who really knows there? But we'll obviously keep an eye on that. Austin Voth is a right-hander, so looks like they're going to go probably heavy lefties again. Outfield from left to right. Let's go Meadows in left. I'll have Kiermaier in center, and just for the heck of it, go with the righty Arozarena in right field with Margot starting there today. And then in the infield from left to right, we'll go, let's say, I don't know, maybe have, that's hard to say, really. Maybe Brasso at third base, Adames at shortstop, or maybe Wendell. Let's go Wendell at third base, Adames at shortstop, Brandon Lau at second, and let's say Nate Lowe at first. Michael Perez will most likely do the catching for Fairbanks, followed by Josh Fleming. I would imagine maybe Yoshi, the lefty, would maybe beat the DH. That's really all we have for tonight's show. 4.5 minutes left in the Lightning game, still tied at 1. So hopefully the Lightning will win. We'll be on tomorrow night to talk about it. It was nice being on the air, talking to all of you guys. We had some guys call in. Thank you to Seth. Thank you to Sebastian. Some really great callers tonight. I do really appreciate anyone that calls in, and hopefully we'll be taking some more tomorrow. Busy time in Tampa Bay sports. The Bucks off to a rough start, but they'll be exciting to watch. The Rays headed to a playoff push, as in the Lightning maybe securing a cup. So a lot to talk about over the next couple of weeks. We'll be on tomorrow at 9, and we'll see you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan,
HBC.
New York.